61. The back and forth, the essence of flowing water. Bangu could feel Chen Xiao deliberately suppressing his qi and blood, normally blazing like a great sun, bringing his strength down to a rank comparable to his own. That revealed Chen Xiao's purpose. This was meant to be a contest of the water stream rock smashing fist, not a test of raw power. How arrogant, as expected of youth, full of vigor, Bangu thought, and raised his hands to unleash the water stream rock smashing fist, the technique that conquers the hard with the soft. If that's the case, this old man must answer the young man's challenge. Their fists met in the void realm. Two currents of the flowing water concept sought to neutralize the other's strike, and for a moment they canceled each other out, leaving nothing but the clash of flesh and bone. Bangu's expression tightened. His right-hand water stream rock smashing fist had been neutralized, forcing him to rely on raw strength to resist Chen Xiao. That was dangerous. His right hand would shatter at the first true impact. Chen Xiao had suppressed his qi and blood, yes, but not his physical constitution. In pure physical strength, they were not on the same level. When two men apply the same force, it is usually the one with superior constitution who walks away whole, while the weaker is broken. To compensate, Bangu moved his left hand through the void realm, letting the pale blue concept of flowing water swirl around the front and dissipate the impact of Chen Xiao's right fist. But that broke the left-right balance, and Chen Xiao's left-handed water stream rock-smashing fist drove straight into Bangu's abdomen. Humph! Bangu flew backward like a cannonball shot from a gun, his legs gouging two deep, smooth trenches in the earth. Pale blue light curled around his feet as the soft force of his technique continuously neutralized the internal shock, and after sliding dozens of meters, he finally stopped. As a martial artist grandmaster who had raised the water stream rock-smashing fist to the transcendent level, he wasn't limited to using it with his hands. Though the fist's mechanics didn't entirely fit legwork, decades of experience let him improvise. A sharp, lingering pain sat where he'd been struck. Bangu's face darkened and his stance tightened again. Before the duel truly began, Bangu had been secretly impressed by Chen Xiao's comprehension, how the young man had grasped a technique Bangu himself had spent years refining in an instant. But he'd also convinced himself. Chen Xiao had only just comprehended the form. Compared to a grandmaster who had practiced it for years, he should be lacking. Now his estimate had been proven wrong. Chen Xiao's use of the water stream rock-smashing fist was in no way inferior to his. Good grief, Bangu muttered under his breath, feeling the old fire return. Memory fragments flickered through him, the first half of his life rushing up like a river. In his youth, he'd been arrogant and reckless, fighting not to improve but to humiliate those he disliked. He'd lived indulgently, leaning on talent and thinking himself unique, until his brother Bom beat him so badly he nearly died. That humbling brought change. He buried the reckless exploding heart release fist of his youth and, through painstaking research, forged the water stream rock smashing fist that overcomes the hard with the soft. "Mr. King," Bangu said aloud, voice carrying a respect that surprised him, "you truly have extraordinary comprehension ability to learn what I created so quickly, but in terms of the underlying concept, I should not lose." Awakened to the fervor of his younger self, the man who sought out fights to grow, Bangu's aura shifted. Chen Xiao noticed, and for the first time, a faint arc touched his mouth. The S-Class Rank 3 Silver Fang had become completely serious. Their fundamental strength still differed. If Chen Xiao wanted to win outright, he could have ended it with a single punch. But he didn't want an easy victory. He wanted to taste the peak of martial skill, and to give this old man the respect of a proper match. After all, he had asked to learn the water stream rock smashing fist. It would be dishonorable to just crush him with brute force. Bangu blurred into motion, closing the distance with blinding speed, his fists streaming pale blue water power. Chen Xiao's expression remained stoic and intimidating. Over the roar of the Emperor engine, he assumed the water stream rock smashing fist stance. The two collided again. Their soft, water-like forces tried to negate one another, and when the concepts met and canceled, only raw strikes connected. Bang, seasoned and cunning, found an opening and drove a fist into Chen Xiao's abdomen, then followed up with a flurry, 5 punches in less than a second. Chen Xiao took only a half step back, then narrowed his eyes. In a strange posture, his fists smashed out, not only matching Bangu's power, but channeling the force he'd absorbed from those 5 blows into a single, biting strike. Facing that concentrated return, Bangu stepped back and then surged forward, his hands moving in the air to dissipate the punch's force. The ground beneath them erupted. An invisible shockwave rippled outward from their clash, sending dust and debris flying. Using the dust as cover, Bangu redirected the force he'd just neutralized into a far faster, fiercer barrage of water stream rock's smashing fist. Chen Xiao did the same, dispersing Bangu's force while counterattacking with even greater impact. They continued like this, each strike trying to neutralize and then overcome the other. The exchanges nested into ever more intense layers. One would hit with force, the other would negate it and add his own, striking back with amplified power. Then the first would neutralize that return and counter with even more. The escalation was relentless. Soon every punch carried enough energy to shatter the earth. The battle was fierce, smoke and dust blowing everywhere. A few hundred meters away, Saitama was leisurely preparing ingredients. For water spinach you have to snap off the fibrous bit at the root, makes it tender, he muttered. Enoki mushrooms need to be fanned out a little, otherwise they stick together if you drop them in whole. I'll wash the greens again when we get back. And why are all these meatballs so lopsided? Old man Bangu really can't shape them. He inspected each ingredient and kept grumbling about an old man's taste. Apart from the wagyu, Bangu had bought the rest of the hot pot items himself, and the quality showed. To a hot pot connoisseur like Saitama, they were subpar. Ha! Bangu roared, slamming his right hand against the fist Chen Xiao threw. He twisted his wrist to neutralize the strike, absorbed the force into his body, and unleashed it through his left hand. Chen Xiao mirrored him, one hand to neutralize Bangu's left punch, the other to counter with flowing water rock-shattering fist. The exchange felt like a loop, each attack met by an equal neutralization and return. But Bangu's face grew grim. His hands trembled, his stamina was failing. The combined force of their repeated exchanges was reaching the limit his body could withstand. If it kept stacking, Bangu would be overwhelmed. He needed to break the cycle. Raising his hand again to parry, he plotted a way out and simultaneously called the essence of flowing water through his whole body, slipping backward with speed. Chen Xiao saw the shift and pursued without hesitation. Their flowing water rock-shattering fists met in midair, stirring violent surges of qi that swept smoke and dust away, clearing a broad circle around them. The two traded blows as they retreated, the force building and building. There was a simple solution to this escalating power: direct it into the ground and stop counterattacking. Let the accumulated force dissipate into earth. But Bangu could no longer do that. He couldn't just release the energy here. His dojo wasn't far away. Causing an earthquake would ruin everything. So they fought on, and slowly the battle line stretched for kilometers. Chen Xiao took a step forward, a pale blue streak of flowing water rock shattering fist cutting through the air in a swift, straight punch aimed at Bangu's face. As before, Bangu transferred and neutralized the blow, but this time, instead of turning the energy back for a counter, he deflected it aside. The redirected force surged into the mountain rising behind them. Boom, boom, boom. Cracks webbed across the mountain instantly. Rocks shattered and rain of debris shook the earth. Bangu didn't hesitate. He turned and fled, not wanting to be buried. Within moments, the accumulated force that the two had layered dozens, perhaps hundreds of times, ripped the mountain apart from the inside out. The towering peak collapsed into a mound of rubble. Bangu, several miles ahead, turned to look back and couldn't find Chen Xiao. His heart tightened. Where is Mr. King? Was he buried in the collapse? Then a fierce, brilliant qi exploded upward like a sunburst. An invisible wave radiated out, blowing aside the sky-high dust. Huge fragments of rock flew apart, carving a corridor through the rubble. Chen Xiao stepped out of the wreckage, untouched, no dust on his clothes, no blood, completely unharmed. Bangu was about to resume his flowing water rock-shattering stance when a metallic sweetness rose in his throat. The seasoned grandmaster immediately recognized it. Blood. He stopped, paused in resignation, and shook his head. I lost, he smiled, Not a trace of bitterness. These young ones really are ushering in a new era. An old man should step down. Bangu had indeed been defeated. His hands had grown too weak to keep neutralizing the onslaught, and repeated countering had inflicted internal damage. Chen Xiao, by contrast, had remained relaxed the whole time. His prodigious physicality let him absorb and return force without limit, amplifying each strike. Flowing water rock shattering fist is a technique that uses softness to overcome hardness, small force to beat large, but with an exceptionally strong body, it can be elevated to another realm. Bangu had founded the style, but his physique, though superhuman compared to ordinary people, remained within human bounds. He relied on martial skill and Tao to suppress opponents. In Chen Xiao's hands, the art and a phenomenal physique fed each other, producing a wondrous effect. Realizing that, Bangu felt relief more than defeat. He raised a hand to Chen Xiao, smiling. No more fighting. This battle, the old man has lost. Young people are truly the era's main force. Hey. Chen Xiao returned the smile, relaxing his vast qi until his aura was ordinary. He brushed an imaginary speck of dust from his shoulder and praised sincerely. Old man Bangu, your flowing water rock shattering fist is exquisite. If not for physical limits, your strength could have reached even greater heights. Bangu waved him off, eyes bright with hope for the art's future. King, you don't need to praise me so much. I'm already glad there are successors to our legacy. The new waves push the old waves, and the old waves die on the beach. But to see the new waves stronger than oneself, if the old waves die on the beach, it will have been worth it. They stood there among the clearing dust and ruined mountain, the old master content and the young warrior steady as a new generation took another step forward. Chapter 63, Where There Is a Heart, There Is a Way. The sparring session was over. Bangu twisted his shoulders until his joints popped and sighed. It's been a long time since this old man had such vigorous exercise. Today I really stretched my muscles and bones. My shoulders don't ache anymore. He walked toward Saitama, stretching as he went. Chen Xiao stayed where he was, unmoving, replaying in his mind the movements they had just done together. The flowing water rock shattering fist. Something about it nagged at him. He could control every ounce of his strength, and after executing the technique repeatedly, he began to sense an inconsistency. Not with the move itself, but that it might be combinable with his own strengths to form something new. Chen Xiao had long understood how insidious the passive skill, precise control was. Any martial technique displayed by an opponent could be learned and perfectly replicated simply by watching it once. Following that instinct, he gradually lowered his center of gravity and began to swing his arms again. Bangu had only taken a couple of steps when he narrowed his eyes. He felt a peculiar energy in the air and turned. Chen Xiao stood exactly where he'd stopped, eyes shut, but his hands were moving through motions that were both familiar and different. His fists traced stream-like patterns through the air, containing the profound mysteries of the martial Tao. His footwork followed the arc of his fists. This is the flowing water rock shattering fist. Bangu wondered why Chen Xiao had started practicing it again. Was he consolidating what he'd learned? Then realization hit. Bangu's pupils constricted. Could it be that King was improving the flowing water rock shattering fist? Although Chen Xiao's movements still showed traces of the original technique, they were subtly diverging, the difference growing with every motion. As his hands swung, Chen Xiao began adding his own elements. Hot vitality and blood surged into his fists like a tidal wave, and the pale blue afterimage of the flowing water rock shattering fist bled into deep red. Bangu was stunned. The shock in his heart was enormous. His expression mixed astonishment, complexity, and an eager anticipation. Truly worthy of being king, the strongest on the surface. Talent like this was beyond what Bangu had reached. He was nearly certain Chen Xiao had never seen the flowing water rock shattering fist before today. Yet he had learned it in one fight and was now improving it, a peerless natural gift. Chen Xiao didn't notice Bangu's reactions. He was in his own world, eyes closed, letting the water-like force and the domineering vitality and blood merge in his fists. Pale blue and deep red converged, softness and rigidity fused. Then the system pinged. Ding! Congratulations to the host for independently comprehending the skill. Emperor's Fist, a special fist technique that fuses the force of flowing water with the power of vitality and blood. It can be activated rapidly multiple times in quick succession and possesses immense power. When it meets resistance, the flowing water force can trigger double damage. Each use inflicts a certain degree of strain on the muscles. Exclusive to the host. Huh? I just comprehended a new skill? Chen Xiao blinked at the sudden system alert and opened his eyes. The fist technique he'd been executing was no longer the flowing water rock-shattering fist. It had become something entirely new. His fists shimmered with pale golden light, the trajectory still echoing the old form, but fundamentally different now. Chen Xiao scanned the system's evaluation. Although the name sounded a bit Chunibyu, it suited the move perfectly. He was satisfied. An epiphany had given him a new skill. Time to test it. Chen Xiao flashed and appeared near a small mountain a few hundred meters away. Just as he was about to strike, a thought came to him. Could Emperor's Fist be combined with Evening Elephant to perform a long-range blow? If so, it would be a bold innovation and a further boost to his combat power. He fixed his gaze on a lone peak 3 kilometers away, raised his fist, and slammed it forward. Pale golden light flashed and vanished into the void realm. At that same instant, the distant peak shuddered under a ferocious air cannon, the signature of Evening Elephant, striking the mountain's face. Immediately after, the force of Emperor's Fist hit as a secondary attack, driving into the mountain's interior. Boom, boom, boom. Tremendous power erupted inside the peak. The summit exploded into scattered rubble. The ground shook. The small mountain was left as a huge pile of shattered stone. Chen Xiao felt the power of the strike and was taken aback. It still packed that much punch from nearly 5 kilometers away. What would that do at point-blank range? The combination of Emperor's Fist and Evening Elephant had elevated the already devastating Evening Elephant to an even higher level. He let out a long breath and returned to a normal stance. A sharp sting flared in his right hand where he'd thrown the Emperor's Fist. The muscles had been slightly torn by the intense attack. In the next instant, super speed healing activated and the minor injury vanished. Bangu approached and patted Chen Xiao's shoulder with satisfaction. As expected, exceptional people emerge from the young. Mr. King, your martial attainments surpass mine. I once planned to take you as a disciple, that now seems almost laughable. Chen Xiao shook his head and tapped the area over his heart. My attainments aren't profound. I just follow what my heart shows me. For a martial artist, the most important thing is the heart. Where the heart is, there the Tao will be. Then he turned and walked to where Saitama stood. Bangu remained frozen for a long moment, hands clasped behind his back, looking every bit the old man, yet his eyes were bright and alive. Is the heart truly the most important thing for a martial artist? Where the heart is, the Tao is. What a profound truth, he thought, watching Chen Xiao go. Sonic the Hedgehog, here I come. Sonic the Hedgehog, here I come. Inside the spacious dojo, the hot pot boiled and bubbled, ingredients tumbling within and sending up a mouth-watering steam. Bangu pulled out 2 boxes of wagyu and hovered them over the pot, ready to cook. The bright red beef was laced with snow-white marbling, fat and lean, perfectly balanced, tender and juicy at just a glance. The moment the protagonist appeared, Chen Xiao and Saitama locked eyes on the wagyu. Feeling the tension, Bangu didn't hesitate. With a light tap on the boxes, both slabs floated into the broth. Time snapped forward. On the 8th second, all 3 raised their heads at once, chopsticks darting toward the hot pot with blinding speed. Saitama got there first and reached for a slice, but Bangu's chopsticks, imbued with the intent of flowing water, tapped his, jostling the beef free. Bangu twisted his wrist. His chopsticks caught the falling slice midair and dropped it into his own bowl. Damn it, Saitama's mouth twitched. He abandoned that target and scanned the pot for another. Just then, as Chen Xiao lifted a piece drifting on the surface, Saitama's chopsticks slammed down with fierce momentum. Want to eat? Chen Xiao intoned, and then 8 gates, 7th gate, the gate of wonder. Open. Blue steam erupted from him. A crushing pressure rolled through the dojo, making everyone present, except Saitama, feel as if their chests were being squeezed. Bangu, mid-bite, snapped his head up in shock. Such terrifying pressure. Is this King's true strength? In their earlier sparring, Bangu had thought Chen Xiao hadn't used his full power, maybe not even 50%. Now he realized he'd still underestimated what the title "the strongest man on the surface of the earth" meant. With the force Chen Xiao was releasing, if he'd wanted to kill, one or two blows would have been enough. Chen Xiao felt the power swell inside him and narrowed his eyes. He raised his hand and drove his chopsticks against Saitama's ambushing pair. Compared to when he first transmigrated, his strength, and especially his attribute control, had improved. He could now regulate his power precisely. Above the hot pot, their chopsticks dueled. Every clash sent invisible waves of chi through the air. The steaming wagyu weaved between them, never quite reaching either bowl. Bangu tried to grab another slice, but as his chopsticks drew near, they were split in two by the force of Chen Xiao and Saitama's contest. Bangu, are young people today all this fierce? He thought. Chen Xiao frowned. The remaining wagyu were overcooking and losing tenderness. He needed a plan. An idea flashed through his mind. Aha! Got it! He deliberately tilted his chopsticks, leaving a calculated opening. Saitama, thinking Chen Xiao had made a mistake in the wagyu war, pounced. Ha ha! King! You lost! I'll gladly take this one. Saitama's triumphant voice came from beside him, but Chen Xiao only smirked. He had baited him perfectly. In the next instant, Chen Xiao's hand blurred into an afterimage and swept through the hot pot. Saitama's eyes widened as he realized what was happening and lunged to stop him, but it was too late. His chopsticks still held a slice of wagyu, and even if he returned it, he couldn't prevent Chen Xiao's outrageous sweep. When Chen Xiao finished, his bowl was piled high with steaming wagyu, leaving only a few lonely pieces floating on the surface. Saitama. Sensing his stash had been raided, Saitama's face went a little green, but there were still a few pieces left. Barely enough for a couple of bites. Just as he reached for them, though, Bangu's new chopsticks, charged with the intent of flowing water, shot over to snatch them. If this went on, he wouldn't get a single slice. His simple, drawn expression snapped into razor-sharp focus. His eyes took on an intense glint and power crackled off him. Serious chopsticking. Bangu barely made out a blur before his eyes. The wagyu in the pot vanished, almost all of it appearing in Saitama's bowl, leaving only the last two slices bobbing on the surface. Watching the pair devour the meat, the martial arts grandmaster could hold back no longer. Why are you kids so forgetful? Have you forgotten who bought these 2 boxes of wagyu, you bastards? Z City streets. Passers-by only caught a streak of motion and a gust of wind as something sped by. On the roof of a tall building, a lithe, handsome young man with black hair stood staring toward the dojo. His purple scarf whipped in the breeze, a black skin-tight suit outlined his frame, and a thin, long sword hung at his waist. He glared in the direction of the hot pot, a vein throbbing at his temple as a nasty memory crossed his mind. That bastard Saitama! I have to kill him! Otherwise I can't avenge that punch. He took a step and vanished like a ghost, leaving only an afterimage as he sped away. Ninja, Speedo, Sound Sonic reporting for duty. Chapter 65. I personally guided you along the coastal border. Sunlight washed over a golden beach. People idled away the afternoon. Young couples walking along the shore. Middle-aged pairs dozing under parasols. A man about to go for a swim frowned and tapped his companion on the shoulder. Hey, doesn't the current feel weird? Like something's trying to crawl out of the water. He pointed. Before his companion could answer, the sea violently split, spraying water everywhere. Giant marine creatures hauled themselves onto the sand, roaring. A killing-tinged voice thundered over the beach. We are the Deep Sea Clan. Today, under the leadership of the King of the Sea, we return. Humans who occupy the land, prepare to be conquered. Panic exploded. People scrambled away from the shoreline, fleeing inland. Run, monsters! Where are the heroes? Why isn't anyone here? Hold my hand, don't let go. Screams, hurried footsteps, curses and cries mixed into a rising, chaotic din. A city alert blared through the air. A large number of monsters have appeared on the coastline of Z City District 2. Confirmed demon-level disaster. Citizens, evacuate in an orderly manner. Do not panic. Once the alarm sounded, the panic intensified. Pedestrians on the streets instinctively followed the crowd toward the shelters. In a world where monster attacks were routine, Civilians had grown used to evacuating quickly. The city's shelters filled fast. Above, the blue sky had been swallowed by dark clouds that rolled in and opened to a downpour. The Sea Clan, freshly on land, welcomed the rain that soaked their bodies and freely voiced their contempt for humans. Seeing people flee rather than fight, they mocked humanity's weakness. A 5 or 6 meter tall octopus lashed its blue tentacles and jeered, "Ha! Humans are nothing but despicable creatures. The land will be ours, the Sea Clan." Before the words finished, a rapidly spinning white spear sliced through the rain and struck the octopus squarely in the forehead. The creature's speech cut off mid-sentence. Blue blood sprayed as it collapsed, dead. The other Sea Clan members paused in shock, then fury flared among them. Who dares ambush us? Show yourself. I'm right here, you blind monsters." Through the downpour, a confident voice called out. All eyes turned to the speaker. A young man with black, spiky hair stood there in the rain, clutching a long spear wrapped in gray-black bandages. His face radiated confidence. A-class hero Stinger. Humans, so weak yet bold enough to attack the Sea Clan. Die, he shouted, putting on a show. Seeing dozens of Sea Clan members converging, his smile wavered. Around him lay the twisted bodies of fallen sea creatures. Stinger drove his spear into the sand, his face bruised and swollen. Before him still stood 4 of the most powerful Sea Clan warriors, glaring. "Bastard, you killed our kin! Pay with your life!" Stinger panted, head bowed like a beaten man. As the monsters lunged, he snapped his head up. His body blurred like a bolt of black lightning and vanished from the spot. The white spear cleaved the rain as he surged forward. "Roar, bamboo, shoot!" In an instant, 4 huge, bloody holes opened in the heads of the Sea Clan attackers. They crumpled to the sand, lifeless. Stinger collapsed where he landed, trembling from the effort, an ecstatic grin spreading across his blood-smeared face. "I did it! My new ultimate technique. 4 divine rank monsters in one strike. My ranking will skyrocket." Before he could boast further, a massive green fist slammed into his midsection. The force pushed Rain backward. Stinger spat blood, his eyes rolling, and he went limp, collapsing like a broken doll. How frail. Is this what humans are? Useless. My subordinates are better. The speaker was the king of the deep sea, over 4 meters tall, green-skinned, humanoid but hulking with pronounced muscles. A red cape draped his shoulders, and a small crown sat on his head. Deep Sea King, an unmistakable demon-level monster, loomed over the fallen hero. The alarm continued to wail. In a nearby room, 3 figures heard it and reacted. Saitama, spoon halfway to his mouth as he ate hot pot, raised an eyebrow and was about to get up. Chen Xiao sipped his tea slowly. A flicker of data crossed his eyes, and he smiled. "It's just a demon-level disaster. I've already sent Genos to handle it. This time, I will personally guide him." 66. Super gay guy Chen Xiao felt a flicker of surprise. If he remembered correctly, the Deep Sea King arc should have been preceded by the Meteorite arc, but now the timeline was scrambled again. How strange. The chaotic timeline could only be another butterfly effect of his transmigration. Chen Xiao slowly closed his eyes, and another scene immediately unfolded in his mind. Streets receding into rain, a silver mechanical body, and the roaring explosion of a core. Saitama, watching Chen Xiao as if he were meditating, picked up a piece of food and popped it into his mouth without hurry, mumbling indistinctly. "Old man Bang, is King Fullen asleep? Why did he suddenly close his eyes?" Saitama wasn't worried. He trusted King a lot. If King said there was no problem, then there was no need for him to rush over. Bang couldn't really answer the bald demon king's question. He didn't know what Chen Xiao intended to do. After a moment's thought, Bang offered a tentative reply, uncertainty heavy in his voice. Maybe Mr. King has some special way to resolve the crisis right here? Is that so? Sounds like him. He's capable, after all, Saitama slurred, slurping the morsel he'd picked up with his chopsticks. Z City streets. Pwah! A man in a tight suit with a lightning insignia and hair like a golden pine cone let out a pained shriek and was hurled backward like a cannonball, crashing into the building behind him. Deep Sea King strolled forward calmly, easily lifting the unconscious blonde youth in one hand and casually tossing him aside with a bored flick. The blonde, slender man was an A-class hero named Lightning Max, but strengthened by the heavy rain, the Deep Sea King's power was overwhelming. Lightning Max couldn't even land a hit. Oh my, humans are all so weak, Deep Sea King mused, scratching his head with his sharp claws. The so-called heroes we've met so far can't even withstand a single punch. Conquering this land will be a piece of cake. He leapt high and landed on the road, his massive body even more terrifying in the pouring rain. Then a voice, slightly charming and oddly magnetic, drifted to his ears. "Oh my, you wicked monster! What have you done to my cute and handsome little men?" Deep Sea King turned toward the voice, his pupils narrowing. Standing before him was a nearly 2-meter tall man in a fluffy pink sweater and prison-striped pants. His explosive muscles strained against the fabric. His strong, prominent chin was dotted with freshly shaved stubble, and curls framed a face dominated by long eyelashes. This was S-class hero Sexy Prisoner, flamboyant, unapologetically gay, and notorious for the harem he kept in the large prison, a side effect of his peculiar tastes and the fact that arranging criminals didn't harm ordinary people. Seeing Lightning Max unconscious and Stinger earlier beaten and out for the count, Sexy Prisoner's rage flared. Those handsome A-class heroes were part of his designated harem targets. How could anyone treat his beautiful flowers so brutally? Unforgivable. Sexy Prisoner's aura erupted. His muscles bulged, his chest hair matted to his skin by the rain. With a dramatic rip, his clothes burst open into pink fragments on the ground. His pants split as well, revealing a curious little object. Deep Sea King saw him strip down and sensed the raw power in the man before him. This was no ordinary human hero. "Oi, human, what's your name?" Deep Sea King began. Before he could finish, Sexy Prisoner threw his hands to his face in a theatrical wail. His gaze swept the pink scraps at his feet, and fury intensified. He rose, fists clenched, voice bitter. "You bastard! That pink sweater was personally sewn for me by my boyfriend. How much love went into it?" He surged forward, each step cracking the pavement beneath him. In an instant, he closed the distance and unleashed a punch powered by raw muscle, the strike slicing through rain and finding Deep Sea King's face. The monster staggered back half a step, touched his cheek where it smarted, and gave a feral grin. "Not bad. My turn." "What?" Sexy Prisoner was stunned. His previous strikes had felt like punching steel, almost no effect. Then Deep Sea King coiled, driving force through his waist and arms, and his fist cleaved a brutal path through the air, colliding with Sexy Prisoner's abdomen. Argh! The blow churned his insides. His consciousness dimmed as if something had been pulled from him. Sexy Prisoner rolled his eyes into the back of his head. There would be no melodramatic struggle this time. Deep Sea King had been soaked by the rain from the start, and his strength was close to his ocean form. Sexy Prisoner simply couldn't compete. "Huh, still pretty tough. Let's do this again. Ha!" Deep Sea King unleashed a barrage, fists raining down like a storm and enveloping Sexy Prisoner. Each hit smashed into the S-class hero's formidable frame. Even muscles like rock began to crumble under the onslaught. In moments, Sexy Prisoner's body was caved in, his face a mask of blood, and he collapsed heavily to the ground. Deep Sea King crouched and contemptuously patted the fallen man's face with his finned claws. "Do you really think taking off your clothes will make you as strong as me? What a foolish human. P.S. Divine Rank Proxy will be online in the next chapter. Heh. God-level boosting, kid." After taunting Sexy Prisoner, Deep Sea King didn't waste any more time lingering in front of the muscle pervert. He stepped out into the pouring rain, spread his arms, and carefully tuned his senses to everything around him. The scent of humans is stronger this way. So the ordinary humans have all hidden? Interesting. The more human presence he detected, the wider Deep Sea King's grin became. He strode toward the shelter, but a sharp clash of metal cut through the storm, and a core-charged voice barked, "Burn cannon!" A beam of intense heat vaporized the rain in its path and struck before Deep Sea King could react. A crimson flash reflected in his pupils. "What?" His expression shifted, and without hesitation he crossed his arms over his chest. The microscales on his skin knit together, reinforcing his bulk with muscle and armor. The burn cannon hit his flesh squarely. Flesh sizzled, the impact pushed him back, and 2 deep furrows opened beneath his feet as he slid. Smoke began to curl from his blocking arms. Such powerful energy. What is this thing? He tried to see his attacker, but could only make out a flickering blue core in the rain and the muzzle gleaming with light. Furious at being denied the sight of his foe, the seabed king let out a bellowing roar and hurled himself forward, risking injury as he swung a massive fist in a wide arc. That punch cut a gale through the rain, aimed straight at Genos. If this had been the Genos from before, he might have simply used his thrusters to meet the blow head-on. Instead, a right-side propulsion burst shifted his whole body a fraction to the right, letting the fist pass. Using the remaining momentum, a lower right thruster fired repeatedly, and he ghosted behind Deep Sea King. In that instant, the king was caught between exertions. His old motion finished and the next not yet formed, unable to mount an effective defense. Seizing the opening, Genos extended his left wrist and whirring blades unfolded, spinning into an instant, merciless chainsaw. The teeth bit into Deep Sea King's flesh, slicing cleanly. Green blood splattered and chunks of flesh flew. At the same time, Genos pressed his right arm between the king's thighs and the burn cannon erupted again. Ah! Burned and slashed at once, Deep Sea King screamed and spun, slamming a heavy, thunderous punch back toward the rear. He expected Genos to abandon the attack, or at least slow down. He never expected the machine before him to execute such a divine trick. There was a crisp clanking at Genos's elbows, both arms detached cleanly, and his thrusters shoved his body backward while the severed arms continued to slash and fire, relentlessly shredding the king's body. How is this possible? Deep Sea King, raised in the deep and unfamiliar with such contraptions, froze for a heartbeat. Chen Xiao took advantage of that moment. Genos's golden mechanical eyes flared, and two blinding lasers ripped through the void, striking precisely at Deep Sea King's eyes. Ah! My eyes! Damn humans! The king's terrified roar turned shrill as darkness filled his vision. He flailed desperately, blind and panicked. Genos's remote hands felt the recall command and slid back into place as the body stopped its assault. In under a minute, Deep Sea King had been lacerated, burned in a sensitive area between his thighs, and had his eyes burned by laser, left blinded and reeling. Watching the fight unfold through Genos, Chen Xiao couldn't help but feel a flush of admiration. As expected of Master King, his combat sense is terrifying. That battle had been all Chen Xiao, not Genos. By himself, Genos tended to charge and rely on pure impact, wasting energy and losing precision. Chen Xiao controlled every thruster and micro-movement to conserve power and strike with surgical accuracy, using the detachable arms and melee weapons exactly as he had suggested Genos be fitted with. Back in the dojo, Chen Xiao held a silver-white game controller in his hands, two fingers gliding over the buttons with the steely focus of someone facing a boss in a Souls-like. The corners of his mouth had already curled upward. A divine-tier proxy player, Kid. This setup didn't just add weapons and features to Genos. It gave Chen Xiao full control of the body and shared vision through Genos's mechanical eyes. It was, in effect, entrusting one's life to another. A leap of trust and courage. Genos would always have trust for two people, the doctor who had helped him and Master King, who had taught him with earnest dedication. Through Genos's mechanical optics, Chen Xiao fixed his gaze on the downpour, tracking the green shape that crouched in the rain. Deep Sea King struggled to open his eyes. Those fish-like orbs, rimmed with a violent aura, threatened to burst. Blood-red tears streamed down his face, only to be washed away by the rain. His sight cleared enough to make out shapes, but the world remained stained a bloody hue, and the agony in his eyes set his nerves on fire. Roar! 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 I will slaughter you! Relying on perception that reached mid-demon level, and, in his rage, brushed against high demon, Deep Sea King zeroed in on Genos and lunged. In the driving rain, the rents along Deep Sea King's flesh began to knit slowly. Charred skin was already rebuilding itself. Chen Xiao frowned. This was exactly why Genos and Deep Sea King was such a nasty matchup. This one was thick-skinned and fleshy, with a decent regenerative rate, so Genos's usual barrage didn't yield much lasting damage. It was like this. Genos was an assassin, immensely mobile, every strike razor-quick, but only nicking for 10 points of damage. Deep Sea King was a clumsy tank. He could be kited, but he patched up 5 points of health every second. He couldn't heal instantly after every hit, but in a war of attrition, Genos could run out of core energy first. Still, Chen Xiao's fingers rested on the controller, and his eyes glinted with confidence, the arrogance of a top-tier gamer. If my hits barely scratch him, I'll just invent a better combo. Deep Sea King burst forward and Chen Xiao tapped the controls. Genos' propulsion kicked, shifting his body to the right and letting the assaulting fist sail past. The rotary blade on his left arm screamed out, carving through the gills on the left side of Deep Sea King's face, opening a long, ragged wound and shredding the facial muscles. Pain made the Sea King even more frantic. His massive clawed fist cleaved the rain-filled air as he drove it at Genos. The propulsion burst again. Genos pulled back, then vaulted forward, so the Sea King's momentum carried him past. Unable to arrest his own movement in time, Deep Sea King's blow slammed into the ground, spiderwebbing cracks across the surface. Something vanished from his sight. Deep Sea King twisted to look, and a silver flash bit into his right cheek. Pain flared, white gills sprayed into the sky, green blood spurted, and the muscles on his right face were sliced clean through. Without muscular support, his jaw began to sag, his mouth hanging slack. Then he felt it. Genos was behind him. "Go to hell!" He spun a savage punch that whipped storm gusts, but it struck only air. Genos had slipped beneath him. The rotary blade tore dozens of shallow slices in the space around him, while the burn cannon on Genos' right fired straight into the middle of Deep Sea King's thighs. A streak of flame and force sheared the Achilles tendons clean. His legs lost support, and he collapsed to his knees. The cannon's scorching fire blasted upward between his legs and smacked his face, throwing searing pain into his eyes. Panic rose in him. This is bad. This is really bad. Deep Sea King, who had united intelligent marine life and launched the assault on the surface, had pictured a different ending. He would storm the land, face the strongest human in a titanic clash, and win, securing dominance for the seafolk. Instead, his great bulk was being shredded by high-speed blades. His overwhelming strength couldn't even catch this machine. The fight he'd imagined, visceral, brutal, satisfying, had become a humiliating dance he couldn't influence. Kneeling in the rain, bleeding from his eyes with his jaw hanging, Deep Sea King watched a ghostly figure approach. A lethal intent brushed the region around his neck. "Damn it, he wants to behead me," he thought, and with the last usable hands he had, he scrambled to protect his throat. The blade did not descend on his neck. It found his eyes instead. "My eyes! My eyes!" The already damaged fish eyes were cleaved apart. The two thin streams of bloody tears became a gushing torrent as darkness swallowed his sight. Despair and terror sent his remaining arms flailing wildly. He had no rhythm left, only blind, instinctive swinging that could not touch Genos. Genos stood before him, composed. The blue core at his center pulsed violently as energy coalesced. He raised his right hand. The palm cannon drank the gathered power and hovered a breath's distance from Deep Sea King's open mouth. 100% power burn cannon. The beam flared. A violent column of light and heat shot into Deep Sea King's maw, searing the inside of his head and chest. Scorching temperatures consumed his internal organs in an instant. His flailing ceased. Limbs fell. Deep Sea King's body slumped in the rain and lay still. He was dead. Chapter 69. Let me show you the might of Sonic the Hedgehog. Watching all of it, Genos felt nothing but awe for Chen Xiao on top of his shock. What elegant technique! He had never imagined his mechanical body could execute such precise combos, leaving the enemy with no chance to resist. Even disregarding everything else, Chen Xiao's use of the propulsion system alone was on a level Genos couldn't match. That method, short bursts from the propulsion system to achieve lateral midair movement, evading every attack, stunned him. He couldn't help but wonder, who had actually used this body longer, him or Master King? Truly worthy of being Master King, I still have much to learn. A rustle, and Chen Xiao's voice came through the mechanical eye's feed. You recorded it all, right? Take some time to properly reflect on the fight you just had. Your mechanical body has great potential. In special situations, it can create miracles that bring great joy to the machine soul. With that, Chen Xiao exited the visual share and returned control of the body to Genos. Thud. The Deep Sea King's corpse, which had been kneeling, lost support and crashed to the ground, splashing up rainwater. His two shattered fish eyes rolled from their sockets and tumbled to Genos' feet. The Deep Sea King had died miserably. His internal organs had become blood, and he had been roasted, crispy outside, tender inside, from the inside out. From his wide-open mouth rose wisps of blackened smoke, like a vengeful spirit exhaling its unwillingness and pain. Gino stared at the fallen king for a long time, speechless. If it had been me, would I have beaten that monster? He analyzed his own logs and the data collected on the Deep Sea King during the battle and reached a conclusion. If he had fought using his usual fighting style, his win probability would have been about 46%, still short of even. The Deep Sea King had thick skin and decent regenerative ability. Unless Genos used the overloaded burn cannon, it would be hard to deal effective damage. The pounding of rain beside his ears slowly faded. The downpour had come fast and gone fast. Beams of sunlight pierced the dark clouds and poured onto the earth, lighting the horizon. Gino stood under the sun, sighed, and looked up at the clearing sky. The road I have to walk is still very long. Meanwhile, at the entrance of the Water Stream Rock Smashing Fist Dojo, Chiranko was sweeping outside when he noticed someone leaning in the doorway. He looked up, puzzled. "This is the Water Stream Rock Smashing Fist Dojo. May I ask if you're here to consult?" The young man leaning against the doorframe curled his lips into a smirk. His purple scarf fluttered, and then he vanished. Karanko's scalp went cold. He took an instinctive step back. A second later, a hand rested on his shoulder, then a blade struck his neck. Ugh! Chiranko emitted a low grunt. His eyes rolled back, and he collapsed, limp. Sonic casually tossed the unconscious man aside, and his delicate face hardened into a fierce expression. His gaze fixed on the dojo hall ahead. There he was, the greatest enemy of his life. The S-class hero, Caped Baldy, was right there. He could no longer contain the anger bubbling inside him. He took a large stride forward, then clutched the area between his thighs and hissed in pain. Damn it! Sonic gripped the sword at his waist and drew it in one motion. The blade flashed coldly in the post-rain sunlight. He hunched over from the pain, kicked the door open, and shouted, furious, "Saitama! I know you're in there! Come out right now, I will kill you." But when he saw the scene inside, Sonic froze, his hand on the hilt going rigid. In the large dojo, 3 people sat in a row. The man on the left had golden hair. His majestic, overbearing face emanated a heavy, invisible pressure that made one's chest tighten. The person in the middle looked like an old man with a wrinkled face, but Sonic, being a martial artist himself, could tell at a glance that the man had profound martial attainments. Every motion was natural and flawless, with no opening to exploit. The person on the right wore a mustard-yellow bodysuit, comically red gloves, and a white cape fluttering at the back. Most striking of all was his smooth, hairless head. Sonic realized he'd miscalculated and took a half-step back. Damn it, I didn't expect so many people. The blonde guy on the left was definitely very strong, at least someone Sonic couldn't currently contend with. Just facing him made Sonic feel suffocated. The old man in the middle was no joke either. One look told you he was a grandmaster. If I try to fight them, I'll have to work for it. And the one on the right? Pain in his lower body and fury combined, and Sonic's composure snapped. The hand on his sword trembled. That bald-headed bastard had made me a eunuch. This grudge has to be avenged. Otherwise, how could I, Speedo Sound Sonic, still call myself a ninja? Chen Xiao, watching the black-haired youth's gaze lock on Saitama, combined with the purple scarf and the occasional hunching, instantly recognized him. Oh, so it's the lone testicle ranger. Chen Xiao set down his game controller, casually picked up an uncooked meatball with his chopsticks, and infused it with his power. With a flick, the meatball shot at Sonic like a bullet. Sonic stared at it. Oh, you made the first move? Fine, then let me show you the prestige of Speedo Sound Sonic. P.S. I'm feeling a little sentimental. From when this book had only a few thousand readers, there has been a group of loyal followers who've stuck around. Thank you all for your long-term support and company, and welcome to the new readers. As always, please give an update reminder wave and enjoy a few free little gifts. 70. Another handsome, cute young man has arrived. Sonic's eyes tracked the flying meatball, a sneer tugging at his mouth. Too slow. With a ninja's reflexes, he could clearly see its trajectory and dodge with ease. But Sonic wasn't going to dodge, not when he could show off. He planted his right hand on his sword hilt. In an instant, a cold flash of steel unsheathed, the blade slicing through the air at deadly speed. He swung, aiming to cleave the meatball in two. He expected the familiar feedback of a struck object, a jolt through the blade that told him what he'd hit. Nothing came. Not faint resistance, not a vibration, zero feedback. For a moment his brain refused to accept it. Then the truth hit. The meatball he'd cut through had been only an afterimage. The real one had vanished. Humiliation flared hot and bright. Sonic's face strained, veins standing out as his grip shook. Those three bastards. How dare they make a fool of Speedo? Sound Sonic. He would pay for this. A faint premonition prickled his skin. Before he could react properly, a sharp sound of something slicing the air came from behind. He turned too late. A meatball, ricocheting perfectly off some unseen surface, struck him straight between the legs. The dojo fell quiet. Saitama watched the meatball roll on the floor and with a single regretful sigh said, "Ah, that one's ruined for eating." Bang stared at Chen Xiao in disbelief and instinctively squeezed his legs together. Was the strongest man on the surface really playing such dirty tricks? Then he remembered his own youth and let it go. This wasn't that serious. Chen Xiao kept his face neutral, but the corner of his mouth betrayed him. He was barely holding back laughter. 2 seconds of silence were followed by a pig-like howl from Sonic. He collapsed to his knees, clutching himself, cold sweat pouring down his face as pain turned his handsome features almost purple. Not again. Why is it always there? He thought, wailing. Sonic had never expected a meatball he'd failed to track to find its way to the worst possible target after several ricochets. From leftover Eggman, he had become, in his own mind, leftover Spear Ranger Sonico. He was a ninja, though. His tolerance for pain was high. Propped on his sword and shaking, he still managed to gasp threats through clenched teeth. "Just you wait. How dare you humiliate me? Speedo Sound Sonic will come back." He bolted, unable to face 3 opponents in that state. But as soon as he took a step, a fresh, stabbing pain lanced through him, as if something had been snagged and pulled. Sonic doubled over again, cursing, then clapped both hands over his groin and forced himself to run. When he disappeared from the dojo, Saitama scratched his bald head and murmured, "This guy looks familiar. I think I hit his brother by accident this morning. Why did he get hit again? Poor Jointo Sound Sonico." Chen Xiao lost it and laughed outright. Sonic was pitiful, 2 devastating hits in a row, and Saitama couldn't even remember his name. Still, Chen Xiao wasn't the type to leave a wandering ninja outside the dojo to loiter, even if the fellow was weak. "Saitama," he said, reaching for the chopsticks he'd been holding, "that kid's bounty is pretty high. It could buy dozens of boxes of premium beef." Saitama froze, chopsticks suspended midair. Something about the word bounty sharpened his expression. 10 seconds later, he was back in the dojo carrying Sonic over his shoulder like a sack of potatoes. Sonic's vision cleared slowly. He opened his eyes to an unfamiliar ceiling. Hiss! My head! Pain at the back of his skull throbbed as if he'd been struck. He scanned his surroundings and froze. Cold stone floor, gray walls, sparse furnishings, rows of iron bars with weak sunlight filtering through. Wait, am I in prison? Sonic, assassin and ninja, quickly put the pieces together. He must have been knocked out in the fight and hauled to a cell. He needed to escape. He needed to train harder. He would kill Saitama and that blonde guy. Sonic's pride never wavered. That unshakable confidence had pushed him to ever greater heights. If he'd been frightened before, he'd surpass them. He would not be humiliated again. A soft voice broke his plotting. From the other side of the bars, a burly, heavily bandaged man smiled kindly and said, "Oh, another handsome, cute young man has arrived." 71. Why do I keep running into these expensive things? Huh? A deep voice whispered in his ear, and Sonic felt goosebumps spike all over his skin. A cold shiver ran down his spine. When he looked closer, the man standing before him, bandages wrapped around his bulk, revealed 2 heavy chins like a high-level brawler and a strangely tender, affectionate gaze. Who is this guy? Sonic didn't know his name, but his assassin instincts told him one thing loud and clear. This man was no weakling. He'd been drugged and thrown into a cell for reasons he didn't yet understand, and when you're trapped in unfamiliar territory, the safest move is to play it cool. When Sonic didn't react, the muscular prisoner's face softened instead of hardening. A gentler smile spread across his features. Oh my, he crooned. Our new little sweetheart is a bit shy. Don't worry, once our hearts are joined, everything will be fine." He pushed the cell door open, stepped inside with a grin, and reached a rough, hairy hand toward Sonic's face. Sonic's pride flashed. He slapped the hand away and scowled. "Hey, big guy, you don't look weak. Tell me, what prison is this?" Sonic didn't want to be bogged down in conversation. He needed to learn the guards' routes and find a way out. But the other man only smiled wider at the rebuff. "My little sweetheart," he sighed, eyes shining with excitement. "You're so feisty. Come. Let our hearts meet. Let our heartbeats tell me how you feel." He opened his broad arms as if to embrace him. Damn, this guy's gay. Sonic had spent most of his life training and carrying out hits. He wasn't up on new trends, but he wasn't dense. All the flirting and the way the man looked at him left no room for doubt. Sonic's face went ice cold. "Get lost." He spat the words, then blurred into motion. His afterimage flickered, and he vanished from where he'd been. The brute's arms closed on empty air. He whipped around, and for a moment his expression went blank. Sonic had somehow moved behind him. The muscular man trembled. Heart-shaped adoration filled his eyes. His smile turned even more infatuated. Handsome, strong, stubborn, and best of all, a prisoner? Heaven. He practically drooled. He spun, desperate to sweep Sonic into his arms and smother him with affection. But Sonic's speed was on another level. He streaked past in a blur, creating 2 or 3 afterimages as he circled the cell. The man swung and missed again and again, dazzled by the flashes. Every failed embrace made him more frantic. A flush crept up his cheeks. Watching a huge, muscled man get more aroused because he couldn't catch him made Sonic's mouth twitch with disgust. What a gross, muscular pervert. Just die. Seizing a clear opening, Sonic flashed over the man and launched a savage downward kick aimed for the neck. A sharp hiss of air followed the strike. Then, suddenly, something yanked at him. Pain seared through his head and balance, and he nearly lost control. "Damn, pulled again," he cursed internally as the muscular man spun. The man's signature move, Angel's Embrace, closed over him like an iron band. Sonic, still reeling from the tug, couldn't correct his posture. Solid muscle and a thick mat of chest hair slammed into him. Time froze. A heavy, overwhelmingly masculine scent hit him first, then a crushing pressure that pressed the wind from his lungs. Sonic's eyes nearly rolled back in his head. "Don't get near me," he screamed silently, but there was no escaping it. The man held him tight, eyes soft and almost wet. Oh my," the prisoner murmured, delighted. "I didn't expect you, little handsome, to be so fond of my embrace. I'll return your affection right." He stroked Sonic's black hair and spoke in a hush, oddly tender. "You look like such a dainty little thing," he said. "A jade that looks almost like glass is more valuable. If you're pretty and you still have what a man should, I'll cherish you." Then the man's expression locked, incredulous. He took 2 stumbling steps back, astonishment turning into dejection. "What? You barely have anything." "You only have one of the 3. His voice crumpled. "You lied. You're not a boy at all." All the hopeful words vanished into a long, sorrowful sigh. As he'd said before, a piece of jade that looks like glass is worth more, but you can't actually be glass. Heartbroken, the muscular prisoner turned and left the cell, his face ashen. He glanced back once at Sonic with a reluctant, tear-bright look in his long-lashed eyes. "Goodbye, little one. I don't even know whether to call you a boy or a girl," he murmured. The cell door thudded shut. Sonic lay sprawled on the damp stone floor, gasping, humiliation and outrage boiling in his chest. Why me? Why do I keep running into freaks like this all day long? 7-2. How could I have forgotten this? 2 days later, Saitama lay at home, bored, flipping through TV channels. Now that he'd risen to S-class, he'd upgraded to a bigger TV and even had author-signed manga, luxuries by his old standard. Of course, that kind of luxury was just Saitama being Saitama. Thinking about the taste from yesterday made his mouth water. I really want to taste that night again. Ever since he'd tried that delicious nightin at Bang's place, Saitama felt like Awakens 6 was missing something. He shut off the TV and stared at the white ceiling, scratching his waist. When you're alone, your mind wanders. For no reason at all, he remembered that epic fight that ended out in space. Back then, I really felt the joy of battle. The corners of his mouth lifted a little. That King guy, he's incredible. Since becoming bald head, no opponent had been able to take a single punch from him. Even a normal punch demolished most threats. That brought its own problem. fighting lost its thrill. It was always a one-punch finish, so there was no point. But the fight with Chen Xiao had let Saitama rediscover a bit of the joy of fighting. It was the first time he'd met someone who could take blow after blow. Even though he hadn't been allowed to use a serious punch, just being able to throw consecutive normal punches had given him an unprecedented satisfaction. I really want to spar with King again. The guy didn't even have a scratch after my consecutive normal punches. Next time I'll have to use a serious punch to play with him. He scratched his simply drawn face and turned over, staring at the window with a blank look. Wait, I've forgotten something. A flash lit his round, egg-like head. Damn, I forgot to change my hero name. He remembered his hero name was still that detestable, bald cape hero. Every time he tried to change it, something strange would happen and he'd forget. I have to change it today, no matter what. Saitama didn't much care what people thought, but he didn't want to be out there punching a monster into oblivion only to have a crowd shout, "Bald Cape Hero." That sounded like a barrage of bald head hitting him in the face. For him, besides 24 and money, the only thing that could make him angry was being called bald head. All right, let's go. To add a little ceremony, Saitama put on his hero suit, mustard yellow tights, and stepped outside. The sunlight was bright and his white cape fluttered. He'd gotten an email the day before. His hero ranking had risen again. He was now S-Class rank 14, surpassing Sexy Prisoner, Metal Bat, and Tank Top Master. S-Class rank 14, listed as Bald Cape Hero. Saitama's mouth twitched and he quickened his step. I don't want a name like that. At Chen Xiao's place, the sound of running water came from the kitchen. Since Genos had moved in next door, he'd been helping with the household chores without complaint. In his view, taking care of life's trivialities was part of his training. It tempered his will and honed his attention to detail. Chen Xiao didn't quite know what to make of this faithful cyborg, but he liked having the free time. Truth be told, having a fully automatic housekeeper was hard to dislike. Master King! All the dishes are clean. Residual grease is below 1%. What would you like for dinner? I will go to the market for ingredients now. Chen Xiao had wanted to say, why don't we eat out tonight? He had his eye on a restaurant nearby, but looking into Genos' sincere mechanical eyes and seeing him so eager, Chen Xiao sighed. Never mind, home-cooked's fine. He dumped the ingredient list from his previous life onto Genos. Yes, Master King, I will not disappoint you. I'm leaving now. Genos answered firmly, pushed open the door, leapt into the air, and activated his thrusters, flying toward the market. Chen Xiao watched him go and let his thoughts drift. Nothing had happened for the last 2 days. He'd basically been lying flat, eating, sleeping, and playing games. Life was comfortable. The millions in salary S-Class heroes received were mostly for show. At that level, if you wanted something, you just told the Hero Association and they'd provide it. Want a 20 million house? Don't pay. File the request and the association would buy it. A deep blue data panel floated before his eyes as Chen Xiao scrolled through his stats. Not bad, getting stronger and stronger. After the last earth-shattering battle, Chen Xiao had broken through part of his 14 and his power had begun to steadily increase. The growth was small, less than 200 attribute points in 2 days, but progress was progress. Then his eyes widened. How could I have forgotten this? If he remembered correctly, not long after the Deep Sea King arc, a certain 5, one that looked like plankton, would come to Earth looking for an opponent. If that guy Boros came, he wouldn't just be looking to fight. He'd smash a city to ruins along the way, like the time a city was destroyed. Chapter 73. This is also part of the prophecy. The door to the Hero Association swung open and Chen Xiao walked in with long, confident strides. The reception staff glanced up automatically. When she saw that majestic, domineering face, she froze. It took her a second or two to recover, her cheeks flushed with excitement. Mr. King, why are you at the Hero Association today? Oh my, it's the real Mr. King. The living legend is standing right in front of me. Realizing she'd been unprofessional, the receptionist hurried to straighten her collar, compose herself, and speak respectfully. Mr. King, may I ask why you have come to the association today? Shall I notify Mr. Sitch? Chen Xiao nodded. Yes, thank you. It's no trouble at all. The receptionist rushed off to fetch him. Before long, Sitch came barreling in, even more flustered. He practically sprinted up to Chen Xiao and stopped, trying to keep his voice steady but failing. "What's wrong, Mr. King? Has something happened? A massive dragon-level disaster? The awakening of an ancient deity? Or the legendary god-level disaster? Was some evil organization about to appear and overthrow the world?" A rush of doomsday scenarios flashed through Sitch's mind. In his view, anything that could draw Mr. King here in person had to be a crisis that could wipe out humanity. Sometimes his intuition was frighteningly accurate. Chen Xiao scanned the lobby, frowning at the steady stream of people. To avoid causing unnecessary panic, he and Sitch retreated to a private room and sat facing one another. Chen Xiao was calm and composed. Sitch, however, felt the pressure like a heavy weight. Sitting opposite this man made his entire chest ache, as if some invisible hammer were striking his soul. He picked up his teacup to steady himself, the hand that held it trembling slightly. He took a deep breath, forced his composure, and sipped. Chen Xiao spoke first. "In the near future, a crisis that could lead to the extinction of humanity will descend." The tea sprayed out of Sitch's mouth. He coughed and choked, tears in his eyes. "Cough! Cough!" Chen Xiao waited without hurry until Sitch had stabilized. When he finally recovered, panic had taken permanent residence on his face. He pressed his palms flat on the table and asked, voice shaking, "Mr. King, is that true? Will a crisis capable of wiping out humanity actually come soon?" He had never expected his worst hunch to be right, that the legendary, world-ending disaster was truly on its way. "May I ask if it's a natural disaster or man-made?" "If it's man-made, we can prepare. If it's natural..." Sitch trailed off, dread pressing in. Chen Xiao organized his thoughts and spoke seriously. "Strictly speaking, consider it a natural disaster. In the near future, a powerful alien force will descend on Earth, arriving above City A with a main ship and a fleet. According to my prophecy, they'll unleash a devastating bombardment as soon as they arrive, and it will destroy the whole of City A." "What? Aliens?" Sitch's composure collapsed completely. He had been bracing for an earthquake or a suddenly birthed monster, not an extraterrestrial invasion. "Mr. King, this," he stammered, at a loss for words. From his point of view, such a thing was almost absurd. Where would an alien invasion come from, and how could all the satellites have missed it? But the problem was that the prediction had come from Mr. King. That alone made it impossible to dismiss. "I understand, Mr. King. The association will immediately form the highest-level disaster response team, deploy defensive measures according to your prophecy, and raise City A's defense level by 3 levels. Sitch vowed, earnest and determined. If the prophecy was right, they had to be ready. Otherwise, City A would be wiped out in an instant. As the first, largest, and most politically significant metropolis among the 26 cities, losing it would be a devastating blow to humanity. "Then I'll leave it to you," Chen Xiao said, nodding. He stood and turned toward the door. He had come for exactly this reason, to warn them early and hopefully reduce casualties in City A. Even Chen Xiao didn't know when the fleet led by Boros would arrive, or whether his intervention would shift the timing. All of that was variable. The only thing he could do was have City A strengthen its defenses. Sitch breathed a tentative sigh of relief and began to stand. Chen Xiao paused at the door, turned slowly, and looked back. Sitch's face snapped taut again. "No way. Was there another crisis?" "By the way," Chen Xiao said calmly, "it won't be long before Grandma Shibabawa makes a corresponding prophecy. You can use that to verify what I've told you." He added casually, "Also, tell Grandma Shibabawa to cut down on throat lozenges for a while. There's a chance she could choke on them. That's part of the prophecy, too." "Huh?" Sitch gaped. "P.S. It won't be many chapters before the Second Great War begins, huh?" Although Sitch had hesitated about Chen Xiao's warning, his absolute trust in the strongest man on the surface of the earth made him act without delay. He ordered the Hero Association staff to mobilize. Soon the corridors were clogged with people, phones pressed to ears as teams in City A were contacted, and engineering squads scrambled. 10 minutes after Chen Xiao left the association, the front door swung open again, and a shining bald head appeared. Saitama paused in the doorway and took in the frantic scene. Everyone looked so busy. Maybe this wasn't a good time to be seen. He almost backed out. He'd failed to change his codename several times before for one reason or another. Was he about to chicken out again? The thought made his expression tighten. No, not this time. Today I'm changing my codename, no matter what. He stepped forward, intending to stop one of the staff members barging past with a pile of papers. But after 2 strides, he saw the man sweating so profusely he looked like he might collapse. Saitama's hand dropped. Forget it, I'll come back later. A codename could be changed anytime. A day passed in the blink of an eye. The game controller lay neatly on the floor, unused. Chen Xiao hadn't picked it up. Instead, he was deep in thought. He realized something about Boros. The alien hadn't come to Earth to raise cities. He'd come to find someone who could match him. That suggested a possible tactic. If someone put out a powerful enough aura in a deserted area, could they lure Boros there and spare City A? Chen Xiao ran through the possibilities and shook his head. It was impractical. Boros's ship had stealth systems good enough to evade satellites, and it could touch down silently over City A. He had no idea when the alien would appear. He couldn't spend all his time broadcasting a fake aura in the wilderness. That would be ridiculous. So all he could do was wait and prepare. A piercing alarm cut through the day, and an emergency broadcast blared out over loudspeakers. Attention, all citizens of City Z. A massive meteorite has been detected and is descending toward the center of City Z. Estimates indicate the impact wave will destroy the city. Impact is expected in approximately 30 minutes. People stopped whatever they were doing and craned their heads up at the sky. What had been the calm blue above was now marred by a dark speck that grew steadily, an enormous meteor spiraling toward them. Chaos erupted. Cars flooded the streets in a mad stampede. Shoppers, commuters, and office workers pushed and shoved, trying to escape. In one alley, a handful of people knelt and prayed. Others clung to family members and sobbed. Some panicked and looted shops. While many fought over rice, salt, and cooking oil, a couple of young thieves slipped into a jewelry store and started stuffing gold and silver into their coats. Run! Move faster! If you don't move, I'll run you over! I'm trying! How am I supposed to drive when the cars ahead of me aren't moving? Angry shouts, curses, and desperate bargaining mixed with the sound of sirens. At the entrance to an air raid shelter, a long line had formed. Those at the back peered anxiously forward, glancing up as the meteorite grew larger and darker against the sky. On the rooftop of a tall building, 4 figures stood silhouetted against the chaos: Bangu, Janos, Saitama, and Chen Xiao. The wind tugged at their clothes as they watched the looming rockfall. Bangu, the martial master, looked down at his calloused hands and exhaled. All the years I spent refining my art, it feels insignificant in the face of this, he said quietly. Flowing water rock shattering fist works by redirecting an opponent's force. What do you do when the opponent is a meteorite? If I don't get pulverized in an instant, then the meteorite's structural toughness is unimaginable. Gino's expression was controlled but tense, sensors tracking the trajectory and estimating impact effects. Saitama's face, however, had taken on an unusual sharpness. He was deadly serious as he stared up at the descending rock. He'd heard the broadcast. If it hit, his apartment and the small treasures inside would be destroyed. Manga. My precious manga, he thought, clenching his fist. The muscles in his arm tightened as power gathered, though he didn't move yet. Chen Xiao, for all his calm, was thinking clinically. His concern wasn't dramatic heroics, it was minimizing harm after impact. If the meteorite struck, where would the debris fall? How could they reduce the danger to civilians? How could they prevent residual fragments from raining down over populated areas? The 4 of them stood on the rooftop, each weighing the problem in their own way. Bangu, whose art could not contend with rocks from space. Genos, running calculations and systems checks. Saitama, half angry at the thought of his belongings being pulverized. And Chen Xiao, planning for the after effects. Below, City Z spiraled toward a single, looming moment of impact. With King around, nothing was a problem. Gino stepped forward, his expression grave, short golden hair fluttering in the wind. His mechanical eyes flashed with a cold, dazzling light as he turned to Silverfang. Silverfang, why aren't you fleeing? With your strength, leaving Z City before that meteor hits should be easy. Silverfang looked up at the sky and smiled ruefully. How could I leave? My water stream rock smashing fist dojo, half my life is tied to it. My roots are here. Why would I go? He glanced at Chen Xiao at his side and continued with quiet confidence. And with King stationed here, I have no reason to be afraid. To Silver Fang, no matter how terrifying the meteor seemed, there was nothing King couldn't handle. Genos heard him and nodded with absolute certainty. As expected of Silver Fang, with Teacher King here, a mere meteorite is nothing. Genos produced a black box and turned to Chen Xiao. Teacher King, with your permission, may I try to stop the meteor? In Genos' mind, if King moved even slightly, the meteor would be gone. Still, Genos wanted to try himself. His fight with the Deep-Sea King had taught him something about subtle control, and the box held his latest modified parts, powerful, but with severe limits. Chen Xiao gave a curt nod. If you want to, go ahead. Thank you, Teacher King. Genos wasted no time. He opened the black box and fitted 2 additional arm components that dramatically amplified his firepower. The trade-off was brutal. After unleashing that power, his body would overload, and he would be combat incapacitated. With the clank of metal, the components locked onto his forearms. They looked enormous and magnificent. Saitama, who had been preparing to jump up and punch the meteor into pieces, relaxed his raised fist and let out a small smile. He wanted to watch. Never mind, he wouldn't spoil Genos' chance to shine. A breeze rose beneath Genos' feet. The new arm parts unfolded, transforming his hands into a complex, cannon-like platform. Silver Fang felt the raw energy building and widened his eyes in surprise. What powerful firepower! Genos' mechanical eyes blazed with battle intent. Tiny blue arcs of electricity began to dance along the cannon platform. Super-powered burn cannon, he shouted. A destructive beam lanced into the sky, crimson flames painting the horizon a seared yellow. The column of energy was laced with crackling arcs, like a roaring dragon stabbing into the clouds toward the falling meteor. The beam slammed into the meteor. An invisible blast wave swept outward. Violent energy fluctuations produced a blinding white glare that made it nearly impossible for bystanders to keep their eyes open. Ah! Genos roared as the core in his chest flowered with a brilliant blue light, pouring massive power into the cannon. Under the desperate release of energy, the meteor's descent slowed and then stalled, hanging as if frozen in the sky. A satisfied curve touched Genos' mouth as he pushed more power from his core, determined to blast the meteor back into space. Then disaster struck. Thick smoke rose, the cannon platform shattered, and Genos' mechanical frame buckled to one knee. Blue arcs danced wildly around him. He had hit his limit. His body could no longer respond. The meteor began to fall again. A wave of despair washed over the crowd. If even Genos' heaven-piercing beam couldn't stop it, could Z-City possibly be saved? Wait, look, who's on that rooftop? The voice cut through the murmurs. Everyone followed the pointing finger to the rooftop. Oh my god, it's actually King, S-Class Rank 7, the S-Class Rank 14 Bald Cape Hero, and Silver Fang, 3 S-Class heroes. Thank God, we're saved. With Lord King here, the meteor disaster will be averted. Tears of relief sprang up from those who had already been bracing for death. The meteor still loomed above, but now everyone knew that with King on the scene, it was no longer an immediate threat. Chen Xiao already had a solution in mind, but he wanted to explore other options too. He turned to Saitama. Saitama, try to see if you can push it back into outer space. Huh? Saitama blinked, then raised his gloved fist. Wouldn't it be okay to just punch it to pieces? It doesn't look that tough. Chen Xiao looked exasperated. As usual, Saitama hadn't considered the fallout. In the original incident, breaking the meteor apart hadn't spared the city. The raining fragments left Z-City nearly ruined. Smashing it would solve the problem, but the debris would be catastrophic. Listen to me. Try to carry it away instead. Fine. Saitama agreed and swung his arms. The ground beneath him cracked as he leaped, rocketing upward with incredible speed. This time, the Bald Cape Hero did not aim to pulverize the whole meteor in a single punch. He reached out his hands toward it. 76, falling apart. In the despair of impending annihilation, a yellow figure shot straight into the sky and positioned himself beneath the meteorite. It's S-Class Rank 14, the Bald Cape Hero. He's gone up to stop the meteorite. Go, Bald Cape Hero. If you hold it, we'll definitely vote for you. You must hold on. That's right, Bald Cape Hero. Go, we'll always support you. Your shiny bald head is the sexiest. Bald Cape Hero, Bald Cape Hero, Bald Cape Hero. The crowd below roared, their faces full of desperate hope. Saitama, who had only just been preparing to catch the meteorite, immediately lost his composure. Veins bulged on his smooth scalp. Could you all just shut up? You lot are all bald too. Annoyed as he was, the people were cheering for him, so Saitama forced himself to take the meteorite crisis a little more seriously. The falling rock filled his entire field of vision as he tried to lift it with his bare hands. On TV, superheroes always did things like this, catching crashing planes or falling meteorites with their palms, looking impossibly cool. All right, I'll try it, he told himself. The next instant, a crushing weight slammed over his tiny frame. Still, how could the Bald Cape Hero feel crushed? He planted himself in the air, trying to intercept the meteorite mid-fall. With the sound of cracking stone, Saitama fell through the meteorite. His body was so dense and unyielding compared to the rock that he went straight through it. He couldn't stop it at all. It was like driving a nail through tofu. The nail passes right through instead of holding it up. Helpless, Saitama landed back on the ground, looked at the meteorite with a human-sized hole drilled through it, and called up, "King, what do you think we should do now? I can't hold up the whole thing. Should I just punch it to pieces?" Chen Xiao tilted his head up. A faint green light bloomed in his eyes. Vast psychic power surged from him, washing across the meteorite, but it only managed to slow its descent. It couldn't halt the fall entirely. "So it really can't be stopped as a whole," he murmured. "In that case, Saitama, let's break this thing up. Shatter it as much as we can. The smaller the pieces, the better." "Oh, shouldn't we have thought of that sooner? That's basically my speciality." Saitama agreed, crouched, and drew his right fist back, preparing a charged haymaker. Chen Xiao's eyes flashed, and in an instant, blood-red steam bloomed around him, hot as flame as violent chi and blood surged outward. 8 gates, Death Gate, open, he roared. "Here we go." Chen Xiao muttered under his breath, then added with burning indignation, "All right, damn meteorite, actually trying to destroy my home. It clearly wants to steal my complete collection of the author's personally signed manga." The rooftop beneath their feet fanned with spiderweb cracks as 2 figures, one red, one yellow, launched straight up. The crowd below went mute for a moment, stunned. Above, the monstrous meteorite blotted out the sky, its burning surface terrifying and glorious like a natural cataclysm. Below it, 2 streaks of light, mere human bodies, raced up to meet it. Emperor Fist! Serious punch! Both fists slammed into the pitted surface at the same time, and for a moment, the world seemed to go silent, as if the creator had hit mute outside time. The silence broke in less than a second with a thunderous roar. Violent force, deep and vast as an ocean, poured from their blows into the meteorite. A solidified shockwave of fist wind and dazzling golden light drilled through the rock, pierced into the depths of space, and then vanished at the edge of the silence. The meteorite's surface spidered with dense cracks, then exploded, sending countless fragments scattering. Chen Xiao's mind moved with the fight. The power of the Emperor Fist flared through each fragment, golden brilliance flashing as the pieces split again into smaller shards. He raised his hand, activated energy control, and golden points lit across the surface of the void realm. Threads of energy stitched those points together into a vast net that spread to cover the whole of Z City. The larger fragments disintegrated the moment they hit that energy web, turning to dust. Only the smaller shards slipped through the gaps, trailing sparks as they continued to fall. Watching Chen Xiao summon such a magnificent citywide energy net, envy crossed Saitama's face. He looked down at his fist, still wearing that plastic red glove, and sighed. "Why can I only throw punches? Can't I do some flashy energy wave or something?" Even after the net's intervention, thousands of fragments still fell toward different parts of Z City. Their size and number were much reduced, but they would still cause damage. Chen Xiao activated his psychic power again. It spread invisibly over the entire city, and the remaining fragments, enveloped in a faint green light, hovered and then drifted as one toward the wilderness. Piece by piece, the meteorite disaster was dismantled by their combined efforts. By the time the last spark fell, not a single building in the city had been harmed. For a moment, everything was quiet. Then Z City erupted into a thunderous celebration. joy at surviving an apocalypse, and praise for the two heroes. As expected of King, Lord King, we love you. Bald Cape Hero, you're the best. I just love your sexy little bald head. Saitama had been holding a trace of a smile, but the last line wiped it away. You hateful crowd, he shouted back, exasperated. If you're going to praise someone, just praise them. Why do you have to keep teasing my bald head? P.S. Sorry, readers. Today's chapter was delayed because it's the author's birthday. There will definitely be another chapter before midnight. Chapter 77, One Punch Man. The S-Class quartet sprang from the rooftop and landed among the crowd. In an instant, cheers and awed gasps rose from every direction. For a moment, they were the center of the world. Amid the roar of excitement, countless hands reached for that smooth, shiny, bald head. Saitama felt something off and dodged a few tentative touches with a shake of his head, but more hands swarmed in. The area was packed with ordinary people. He was completely surrounded, and his bald head was being rubbed like some kind of prize walnut. Those who managed to touch him waved the offending hands around excitedly. Ha ha ha! I touched him! I touched the bald Cape Hero's head. It's amazing! No kidding, as expected from one of the heroes who saved Z City. Even his head feels incredible. Let me try. I want to too. Don't push. Hey, I want to touch the bald Cape Hero's head as well. It looks so squishy. Woohoo! I touched Lord King's palm. I'm not letting water near this hand for 3 days. Saitama stood frozen as countless palms kept coming. The corner of his mouth twitched. You bunch of bastards. If you touch my head again, I'll make you end up exactly like me. Even with his unbeatable strength, the loss of his hair had always been a sore spot. It would have been tolerable as an occasional joke, but now everyone was not only bringing up bald, they were treating his head like a novelty. He couldn't take it. He reached up to scratch his hairless scalp, turned to the crowd, and said flatly, well, I have other things to take care of, so I'm going to head out. Without waiting for anyone's reply, he jumped high and vanished from sight. There was a brief stunned silence, then all eyes shifted to Chen Xiao. A cold drop of sweat rolled down Chen Xiao's forehead. This was bad. Damn it, he thought. Without the little bald guy drawing attention, what was he supposed to do now? In the space of a heartbeat, Chen Xiao disappeared too. As he left, his voice drifted back to Bang. Old man Bang, I'm leaving Genos with you. Take him to the Hero Association. I'll pick him up later. Genos' body had been overloaded by the system. He couldn't move. Bang sighed, shrugged, and picked him up with one hand, parting the crowd as he went. Gah! Lord King, don't go! What are you complaining about? Lord King's in such a rush to leave. He must have sensed some terrible disaster coming and is rushing off to save humanity. Oh, why didn't you say that sooner? As expected of Lord King, always putting people's safety first. We revere you. Bang listened to the crowd's heartfelt praise, stroked his beard, and melted into the throng with Genos over his shoulder. Good grief, both of them ran off in the blink of an eye and left this mechanical kid to me. Word of the meteorite crisis being resolved spread quickly through the cities. The Hero Association did some behind-the-scenes PR, of course, but the real engine was the excited online chatter from the people of Z City who'd been saved. People had already gotten used to the idea that King could resolve a meteorite disaster. It simply became another plaque on his legend. But this time, the hottest topic online was the new S-Class hero, known as the Bald Cape Hero. Rumor had it that during the Hero Association tests, the Bald Cape Hero shattered nearly every physical record. His results made the limits look laughably small. One unnamed examiner said it seemed like a god lived inside him, with the terrifying power of a vicious beast. Since joining the S-Class, he'd been visible in the public eye a lot. Z City folk frequently saw him defeat monsters with a single punch. During the meteorite incident, he and King had apparently worked together to obliterate the whole thing and neutralize dangerous debris. With all that online buzz, the public's opinion of Saitama improved dramatically. Gone were the original story's incidents where his feats were mocked and ridiculed. Everything changed the moment he became S-Class. When you're a C-Class hero, no matter how incredible your deeds, people always assume you're cheating. Their narrow view keeps them from recognizing true strength. But an S-Class hero? To ordinary people, an S-Class is practically a god, and they'll credit you for any miracle, no matter how impossible. King was an exception. His imposing looks and the fearsome emperor engine he carried confused people even more, making them mix up cause and effect. Amid the public discussion over Saitama, many felt the title Bald Cape Hero didn't suit him. The online debate heated up until the consensus was that his name should be changed to something more fitting. Someone suggested One Punch Man. After all, no matter what kind of monster he faced, Saitama always seemed to beat it with a single punch, and his costume resembled a classic superhero outfit, just in different colors. The public outcry reached Hero Association executives, who promptly held another of their long, pointless meetings to discuss whether to officially change S-Class Rank 14's title from Bald Cape Hero to One Punch Man. They spent another 3 hours on the matter, and nobody really knew what they'd accomplished. Sitch sat in the corner of the conference room, staring at the ceiling in utter despair. "How long are you people going to talk, you bastards? Pess? Heh. Thank you to all the readers for your good wishes. The author will keep creating better content. The next major character is about to make an appearance soon. 78, coming soon." So it's decided then. Any objections to renaming the S-Class Rank 14 Bald Cape Hero to One Punch Man? I have no objections. Changing the name is fine, though Bald Cape Hero had a certain character. No objections here either. One Punch Man really suits his style. He defeats every monster he meets with a single punch, after all. Ho ho, if that's what you all think, then I have no objections either. I hope One Punch Man can do some occasional bodyguard work when the need arises. Alright, One Punch Man is currently S-Class Rank 14. Since he resolved such a major disaster this time, should we raise his ranking? Ho ho, that's doable. Let's move him up 2 spots to S-Class Rank 12. One Punch Man probably doesn't have a house yet, right? How about we give him a villa in the wealthy district? You all can invest in that real estate and make a fortune. Ha ha ha, you're the shrewd one. I'm investing. Listening to the Hero Association executives drift further and further off topic, Sitch scratched his head in annoyance. He felt like a deflated balloon and slumped in his chair. Forget it. Let everything just fall apart. Shortly afterward, the Hero Association's official announcement hit every major media outlet. Bald Cape Hero's alias had been officially changed to One Punch Man, and his ranking had been raised from S-Class 14 to S-Class 12. The internet immediately exploded. Man, One Punch Man sounds awesome, so domineering. Can he really beat any monster with a single punch? That's not guaranteed. A hero name doesn't tell the whole story. Look at S-Class Rank 3, Silver Fang. Does Mr. Bang have every power under the sun? But this One Punch Man really is strong. Since becoming an S-Class hero, he's already risen to rank 12 in just a few days, up 5 spots. No kidding. From what I've seen, every monster he's faced gets wiped out by one punch. That kind of strength might surpass a lot of S-Class heroes. Online chatter about Saitama intensified, some praising his new name, some praising his strength, many remarking at how quickly he rose in the ranks. A few detractors were drowned out by the flood of admiration. Some busybodies even compared One Punch Man to King, one a legend of battles, the other a hero who can kill monsters with a single punch. In the end, everyone agreed King's status was unshakable. The protagonist of the debate, Bald Demon King Saitama, was sprawled on his bed, lazily reading a comic. When he reached a shocking plot twist, he sat bolt upright, forgetting the snacks at his mouth. Huh? Rainer and Bertold are titans? That came out of nowhere. I thought there'd be some foreshadowing. Just then, his special phone on the bedside table vibrated violently, and the screen flashed red. Saitama clicked his tongue, snapped the comic shut, and picked up the phone. The message read, word for word, "Major incident reported. All S-Class heroes requested to proceed immediately to A City headquarters for a collective meeting." Oh boy, another meeting. I hope they cover travel. A little inconvenience, but he was an S-Class hero admired by many. Saitama would shoulder the duty behind his reputation. He pulled on his yellow suit, checked the navigation on his phone, leapt, and streaked away as a yellow blur. S-Class heroes from every city received the same summons and converged on the Hero Association headquarters. Even Watchdog Man, who normally never left Q City, set off. Prison. A single punch blew a hole through the thick wall. A muscular man in a pink sweater vaulted through it and struck an exaggerated pose. "Goodbye, darlings. I'm off to a meeting. When I come back, I'll give each of you 2 kisses." "Angel style," Sexy Prisoner shouted, his muscles bulging. A pair of pure white wings seemed to sprout behind him as he bolted across the ground, moving faster than most vehicles. Watching him speed away, the prisoners wept with joy, hugging each other. "Ah, that pervert's finally gone. I couldn't stand him anymore. He's the worst. Last time I tried to stab him in his sleep, the damn knife broke. If I'd known someone like him would end up in prison, I wouldn't have committed any crimes. This is 1,000 times more disgusting than anything I imagined. Z City." After reading the assembly notice, Chen Xiao set his phone down slowly, his expression hardening. A storm is coming. He knew what a meeting that gathered all S-class heroes meant, a crisis that could threaten humanity itself. If it were truly dire, the great prophet Shibabawa would have already declared that humanity was doomed, which would explain the Hero Association's urgency. This could only mean one thing. Boros was about to make an appearance. This time, Chen Xiao wanted to face the so-called Boros himself. He wanted to see whether Boros's super regeneration was stronger or if his own super speed regeneration would prove superior. 79. Does this mean another tornado disaster is coming? City A, Hero Association headquarters. 17 S-class heroes were gathered around a rectangular conference table. A muscular man in a pink sweater sat fidgeting, batting his eyelashes and throwing flirtatious looks at a shiny, bald head across the room. S-Class rank 17, Sexy Prisoner. A young man with a pompadour and a red shirt lounged with a metal bat in hand, sprawling in his chair. S-Class rank 16, Metal Bat. A broad-shouldered man with short blonde hair and a blue tank top sat with his arms folded and eyes closed, appearing to meditate. S-Class rank 15, Tank Top Master. Beside him, a blonde man in a black bodysuit and white cape, uncannily similar to the bald Demon King, kept his blue eyes open and surveyed the room. S-Class rank 14, Flashy Flash. One outlier crouched on his chair like a dog in a white canine suit, all 4 limbs planted, his simple mask belying the aura of a true powerhouse. S-Class rank 13, Watchdog Man. In the dim conference room, the bald head was so bright it drew glances from everyone now and then. Saitama sat boredly, his eyes sweeping the table for something to eat. Finding nothing, he slumped back in his chair with a resigned sigh. S-Class rank 12, One Punch Man. He looked left and let his gaze wander over the higher-ranked heroes, mentally cataloging them with the blunt honesty he'd adopted long ago. That huge muscular guy must be Super Alloy Darkshine, rank 11. He's bald too. Maybe we can compare notes. Rank 10 is Pig God. Man, that guy's enormous and always eating. Rank 9, Drive Knight. He kind of looks like Geno's, only a bit sleeker, like some futuristic tech. Rank 8, Zombie Man. Where's the zombie? He's just a little pale with red eyes. Wait, is that vampire stuff? Rank 7, oh, King. King's only 7th. Rank 6 is Metal Knight. Where is he? Nobody showed yet. Is being late allowed at these meetings? Rank 5, Child Emperor. Whose kid is that? Still sucking a lollipop. Somebody should take him home. Rank 4, Atomic Samurai. That guy with the toothpick. Pretty cool. He's got that wandering swordsman vibe you see in old dramas. Rank 3, Old Man Bang. That Wagyu he gave me last time was good. Maybe I should visit him again. And rank 2. Saitama's eyes widened when he saw the small figure with curly green hair beside the table. He couldn't help but snort. Rank 2 is this kid? There's way too much fluff in these rankings. Tatsumaki noticed a burning stare and turned her head. Seeing the shiny bald one, a vein instantly popped on her forehead. Are you kidding me? That boiled egg, that annoying little runt, the lowlife who never listens. How did he get in here too? Tatsumaki's face twisted into a scowl just before Saitama tapped the table and spoke up. Why are there 2 kids at the S-Class meeting? Did some lost children wander in? The room went quiet. Tatsumaki's face darkened instantly, and the Child Emperor, still sucking his lollipop, bristled as well. Atomic Samurai toyed with his toothpick, an approving smile at the corners of his mouth. This new One Punch Man is impressive. I heard he knocked Tatsumaki out before. Not bad. He stood, reached out, and offered his hand to Saitama with a respectful nod. My hand's for the strong. You've earned it. Welcome to the ranks, One Punch Man. Oh, okay. Saitama blinked a beat before registering the new codename. He was used to Bald Cape Hero, so One Punch Man felt oddly formal. The swordsman seemed straightforward enough. Saitama accepted the handshake without making a fuss. Tatsumaki was stunned. She'd been building toward an explosion, and then this egg had the nerve to be friendly with Atomic Samurai and ignore her completely. Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? Furious, she rose and hovered in midair, green psychic light flaring around her. Explain yourself. What do you mean? You keep calling me a kid. I'm 28 this year. You damn baldy. Hey, don't call me a damn baldy, Saitama shot back. Nobody likes being pestered with that insult. I will. Damn baldy. Damn baldy. Damn baldy. What are you going to do about it? The exchange was heating up. Chen Xiao sat quietly, watching the bickering with obvious delight, and silently pulled out his phone to start recording. History in the making. As Tatsumaki's agitation grew, and she toyed with the idea of telekinetically flattening something in the room, the door suddenly burst open. A sweating Sitch rushed in and froze at the sight of Tatsumaki floating amid her green glow. A terrible feeling washed over him. Could it be another tornado madness disaster was about to happen? 80. First round of shelling. Child Emperor sucked on his lollipop, watching Tatsumaki seethe in midair and let out a helpless sigh. Here we go again. Super Alloy Darkshine, meanwhile, hunched his shoulders a little. His dark, gleaming muscles seemed to lose some of their sheen. Oh dear, young Miss Tatsumaki is angry again. Tatsumaki in a rage is truly terrifying. It's best to keep a low profile. Drive Knight sat in silence, his single red mechanical eye fixed straight ahead, thoughts unreadable. Tank Top Master felt the terrifying pressure of psychokinesis and flinched. His blue tank top looked like it had shrunk a size. Damn it, is this what powers do? Muscles aren't supposed to lose to psychic stuff. I'm doing another 10,000 squats when I get back. Pig God and Flashy Flash barely glanced over and went back to their own things. Pig God kept eating, while Flashy Flash idly twirled the tips of his hair between his fingers like a man fussing over his style. Only Metal Bat stood up. The hot-headed delinquent leveled his bat at Tatsumaki, scowling. Hey, I skipped my little sister's dance recital to come to this meeting. Do you know how big of a loss that is? I didn't come here just to watch a brat throw a tantrum. King rubbed the bridge of his nose, glanced at the flustered Sitch, and sighed inwardly. I guess I have to step in, or the Tatsumaki disaster won't stop. Tatsumaki, who had been arguing with Saitama, bristled and opened her mouth to fire back. Ha! You! Everyone, stop for a moment. This emergency meeting has important matters to discuss. Everything else can wait. A calm voice cut through the room. Tatsumaki, Metal Bat, and Saitama all turned toward the speaker. When they saw King, the room fell into a hush. Metal Bat clicked his tongue, but put away his bat and sat down, though he muttered a low warning. Stupid brat. When this meeting's over, I'm going to turn your butt into a flower with this bat. Tatsumaki was about to erupt like a powder keg, but a glance at King's composed face made caution flash across her features. She drew back her psychokinesis and folded her arms, remembering their last fight. Back then she'd gone all out, even overloaded her psychic energy, and still been crushed by King without understanding how. Outwardly, she kept up her tsundere act, refusing to admit anything, but in her heart, she'd long since ranked King above herself, maybe only a few degrees below blast. Seeing the two who had been at each other's throats finally calm down, Saitama gave King a thumbs up. As expected of King, he'd quieted two volatile S-class heroes with a single sentence. With the room quiet, King fixed his gaze on the flustered Sitch. Mr. Sitch, you may begin. Oh, right. The two who had nearly come to blows were suddenly obedient. Sitch collected himself, walked to the conference table, and his tone turned grim. Everyone, the Earth might be finished. At once, the S-class hero's brows tightened. Sitch seemed panicked. He didn't wait for questions. The great seer, Grandma Shibabawa, issued a prophecy an hour ago. The Earth is finished. Her prophecies have never been wrong. Metal Bat blinked. He'd thought this meeting would be about reassignments or maybe a large dragon-level disaster, not the end of the planet. Is this a joke? What about my sister? Panic creased his face. Mr. Sitch, hurry up and tell us what you mean. Why say the Earth is doomed? Could that old woman Shibabawa have made a mistake? Others shared the same doubt, but it was Metal Bat who blurted it first. Sitch shook his head, then looked at King. Shibabawa's prophecies are never wrong, but she wasn't the only one who predicted this. Mr. King foresaw it in advance. Unlike Shibabawa's vague pronouncement, King specified where the disaster will occur and described the sequence of events in detail. Sitch then recounted what King had described: the arrival of the cosmic emperor Boros with an alien warship and a surprise strike that would annihilate every part of City A. Even S-class heroes, who were used to oddities, found the scale of the report hard to swallow. Fighting monsters was one thing, fighting aliens was another entirely. Still, this wasn't just a seer's prophecy. It was also a vision from King, the man known as the strongest on the surface of the earth. They might doubt Shibabawa, but they trusted King. At that moment, King and Saitama both looked up, their faces suddenly serious. "Tatsumaki, that alien fleet has arrived," King said. "They're about to launch the first round of shelling on all of City A. Come with me to intercept their bombardment." He stepped forward, and in an instant was a streak of light as he flew out of the meeting room. Tatsumaki huffed impatiently. I know, honestly, always bossing me around." But she didn't stall. Surrounded by a shimmering field of psychokinetic energy, she became a green blur and vanished from the room.